Hi, my name is Nyla Hope and I'd like to discuss patient safety. I strongly believe that the current way in which the system measures patient safety is unfit for purpose in the care of vulnerable people and needs a fundamental rethink. Patient safety is something that needs to be looked at through the eyes of patients and carers and goes well beyond infection control and the prevention of injury and death. Where patients and carers are left feeling vulnerable, disempowered, frightened or at risk, then patient safety needs to be addressed from a different perspective. During this video, I will highlight some of the issues that I witnessed on a small bay on a ward during just one episode of my mum's care in hospital. Many patient safety alarm bells will ring, yet under the current system of measurement, very few, if any, will have been recorded. The gap between the clinical perspective on safety and the patient-carer perspective became blatantly obvious to me during the last few months of my mum's life. When Mum was reaching the end of her life, she was suffering from drastically impaired mobility and the onset of dementia. During her care, both within her own home and in hospital, there were many safety issues that concerned me deeply. I remember one morning that I went to visit Mum in hospital. She'd been left with no underwear on and was in full view of everyone else, with no protection of her modesty. As a lady of 81 to whom modesty was profoundly important and who was unable to dress herself, I still remember how vulnerable and compromised she looked. Even with her mobility problems, Mum would still often ask for her commode to be left by her bed at night, because she felt that no one ever responded to the buzzer. She felt that falling whilst trying to get onto the commode by herself was less of a risk than shivering all night in her own waste. Having asked to be on a female-only ward, sometimes another patient, who himself suffering from lapses in cognition, would walk into her bay unimpeded by anyone. Random people walking through the ward at night did not make her feel safe at all. A common occurrence, both for Mum and others on her ward, was that for those with limited mobility, buzzers were often left out of reach, under pillows and on chairs, where the patient could not reach them. Patients were left feeling ill, unable to move, and with no way of raising the alarm. After a significant incident, Mum begged us not to be left alone, so we made sure that for any future hospital admittance, my sister, her principal carer, spent the whole night at the hospital with her. Having had these experiences in hospital, my mum did not want to be cared for in a nursing home. Neither did my father want to let her out of his sight. She was principally cared for by my 85-year-old father with his own health conditions and mobility problems, and my sister, who was herself in ailing health. A hospital bed, walking frame and commode were crammed into a small living room. The lack of space was hazardous to both Mum and her carers. No transfer glide sheet was provided or recommended, and a hoist was only provided right at the very last fortnight of her life, by which time she'd become too weak to use it. Something that would have made transfers from bed to commode not only easier, but safer for all of them over many, many months. Others on my mum's ward were also affected by safety issues. One lady ended up eating the food thickener that was left by her bedside without any fluid. During a very hot August day, another lady who was unable to hold a glass asked repeatedly over a number of hours for water in a beaker. Many times I heard ladies asking over and over again to be cleaned after an incontinence episode. So it's clear to me that we do need to find a way to measure issues such as these that affect patient safety from a physical, mental and emotional harm point of view. It's only by measuring the frequency and nature of such incidents that in future we stand some chance of bridging the gap between the clinical and patient-carer perspectives and improving patient safety going forward. So my challenge to the Sea Change team is what can be done to measure patient safety in a way that encompasses how patients and carers feel about the care which is administered to them across all care settings.
Thank you for raising this important issue. My name is Ping Guo. I'm Project Manager for Sea Change. Safe can be defined as free from harm or hurt. So, feeling safe means you don't anticipate either harm or hurt, emotionally or physically. Feeling safe is a concept that we call psychological safety. It's not something we discuss often, as Nyla explained. In reality, many of us has no real concept of what being safe means. Because of this issue, feeling safe, being raised, we made several changes in our research program. We added a question in our patient questionnaire. Do you feel safe in your current care environment? And also in our interviews with the patients receiving specialist palliative care or their caregivers, we asked the participants to tell us if the patients felt that they were safe when they moved to a new setting. Currently, we are in the process of analyzing data. We believe this information about feeling safe is very, very important. It can help clinicians to identify things that instill the feeling of safety and eliminate or minimize things that cause the patients to feel unsafe.